You walked into a room once, maybe a party, maybe a meeting, and within a few minutes you already knew who was uncomfortable, who was performing, and who was pretending to listen but actually waiting for their turn to speak. You didn't analyze it consciously, you just felt it. And nobody else seemed to notice. That's not a coincidence, that's not luck. There's something happening in your brain that most people don't understand, and honestly, most quiet people don't understand about themselves either. What you're about to hear might be the most accurate description of how your mind actually works that you've ever encountered. There's a word researchers use, sensory processing sensitivity, and it describes a trait found in roughly 20% of people across almost every culture on the planet. But the word doesn't capture what it actually feels like from the inside. From the inside, it feels like the world is just louder, more textured, more emotionally charged than other people seem to experience it. You notice the slight tension in someone's voice when they say, "I'm fine." You notice when the energy in a room shifts. You notice details, a faded photograph, a hesitation before an answer, the way someone's smile doesn't quite reach their eyes. And the strange part? You've probably spent years wondering if something was wrong with you for picking up on things others seem to walk right past. Nothing is wrong with you. Your brain is just wired differently, and there's fascinating science that explains exactly why. Here's something most people don't know about how the brain processes the world. Every second, your nervous system is flooded with an enormous amount of sensory data, sights, sounds, temperature, social signals, emotional undercurrents. Your brain can't process it all equally, so it filters. It decides, largely below consciousness, what matters and what gets ignored. For most people, the filter is aggressive. The brain discards quickly and moves on. It's efficient, it's fast. But for people with high sensory sensitivity, the filter is much, much thinner. More information gets through. The brain holds it longer, processes it more deeply, connects it to more emotional context. Neuroscientists call this depth of processing, and brain imaging studies have shown that in highly sensitive people, areas of the brain associated with awareness, empathy, and decision-making show significantly more activation in response to the same stimulus. You're not overthinking. Your brain is doing more work. And here's where it starts to get complicated, because doing more work isn't always comfortable. Think about what happens when you go to a social event. While other people are simply experiencing the room, you're simultaneously experiencing the room and processing the emotional temperature of every interaction in it. You're aware of your own internal reactions. You're tracking subtle shifts in other people's behavior. You're holding all of that information at once. By the end of the night, you're not just tired the way other people are tired. You're depleted in a way that's almost cellular. And then, here's the part people rarely say out loud, you start to wonder if maybe you're just too sensitive, too much, too easily affected by things that seem to roll off everyone else. That thought, that quiet, recurring doubt, that's the real cost of this trait that nobody warned you about. But here's where it gets worse, because the world doesn't reward this kind of awareness, not visibly anyway. Quiet observation doesn't get applause. It doesn't generate likes. The people who dominate conversations are the ones who get noticed, get promoted, get remembered in a room. The person who sat quietly in the corner and saw everything, the tension between the two colleagues, the way the presenter lost confidence halfway through, the moment the energy shifted, that person often leaves feeling invisible, and over time, invisible starts to feel like irrelevant. So some quiet people do something that makes psychological sense, but quietly costs them. They retreat further. They stop sharing what they notice. They curate themselves into a smaller, safer version of who they are. They perform normalcy rather than expressing depth. and the world, which never knew what it was missing, carries on. Here's what's actually happening in the brain when this retreat occurs. The brain has a mechanism called a threat-reward system. When the brain perceives social risk, judgment, rejection, the possibility of being misunderstood, it activates the same neural pathways associated with physical threat. For sensitive people, that activation is stronger. It's not weakness, it's calibration. Your nervous system learned, probably early, that full self-expression comes with cost. So it adapted. It built caution into your personality the way a muscle builds around an old injury, protective at first, limiting over time. Think of it like this. Your brain is a highly sophisticated noise-canceling system that got turned up too high in one direction. It became so good at detecting emotional signal in the environment that it started running on alert even when the environment was safe. The alertness itself became the habit. And that habit almost certainly didn't start in adulthood. For many quiet, sensitive people, the heightened awareness began as a survival strategy in childhood. Perhaps the emotional climate at home was unpredictable. Perhaps you learned early that reading the room was the safest way to navigate it. Perhaps you were praised for being mature or perceptive in ways that quietly told you your job was to observe, not to need. Children adapt, brilliantly, instinctively, and the adaptation that once kept you emotionally safe follows you into adulthood, long after the original environment is gone. You carry the vigilance, you carry the sensitivity, and sometimes you don't even realize that what felt like protection became the very thing keeping you from being fully present in your own life. None of this is a flaw. It's worth saying clearly, there is no superior way to be wired. People who process the world quickly and move on without ruminating are not better. They simply pay different costs. They miss things. They misread rooms. They make fast decisions that require slow repair.
You see things they don't. You feel things they can't. You understand the texture of human experience in a way that most people have to work very hard to access. The trait is not the problem. The paradox, and there always is one, is that the same depth that makes you perceptive can make you prone to disappearing. Because when you notice everything, you also notice every possible way something could go wrong, every subtle signal that someone might be annoyed, disappointed, or distant. And so the brain, trying to protect you, starts to preemptively shrink. Don't say that. Don't take up too much space. Read the room before you speak. And slowly, the person who notices everything becomes the person nobody quite knows. If this is hitting somewhere specific, that's not an accident. So here's what's worth considering, not as steps to fix yourself, but as small recalibrations for a system that learned to be more careful than it needs to be. First, practice letting your observations be just observations, not evidence of threat, not predictions, just information. When you notice tension in a room, try staying with the noticing without immediately deciding what it means for you. Your brain will want to run straight to implication. You can gently interrupt that. Second, choose one relationship where you allow yourself to express what you actually perceive. Not all of it, just more than you usually do. The brain learns safety incrementally. One honest exchange teaches it more than 10 years of protective silence. Third, distinguish between sensitivity and responsibility. You are not responsible for the emotional state of every room you walk into. You can notice what's happening without becoming a manager of it. That boundary between awareness and ownership is where your energy starts to come back. Here's the simple model that ties all of this together. Your brain is a highly attuned instrument in a world that often rewards volume. You learn to turn the volume of yourself down to survive in it. And now the work isn't to become someone different. It's to slowly, carefully trust that the same depths that helped you read the world is also worth bringing into it. You are not too much. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are someone who has been quietly paying attention your entire life. And attention, real, deep human attention, is one of the rarest things there is. The fact that you see what others miss doesn't mean you don't belong in the room. It might mean you're exactly who the room needs. If this felt true somewhere inside you, there's more to understand about how your mind works. The psychology of sensitivity, observation, and identity runs much deeper than one video can hold. And you already know that. You noticed everything here, too.